On this episode of MythBusters, a blast from the past. As Adam and Jamie hit the history books.
There will be a lot of fire, and I could get burned.
To explore an explosive myth from the Civil War.
Wow!
Did the Confederate Army build the world's first long-range missile?
In 3, 2, 1.
Who are the MythBusters? Adam Savage and Jamie Heineman.
This is gonna kill you.
Between them, more than 30 years special effects experience.
That's what I'm talking about!
They don't just tell the myths, they put them to the test.
This one, I've been waiting for 3 whole years to make this one finally happen on the show.
It's got danger, gunpowder, so I'm all for it.
All right, so the myth is that late in the Civil War, the Confederate Army actually built, aimed, and launched a 2-stage rocket from Richmond, Virginia to Washington, D.C., almost 100 miles. Observers claim to have watched this rocket roar skyward, drop its first stage, and disappear from sight. Oh, yes.
It's a myth of ballistic proportions. The American Civil War was mostly slugged out with rifles and cannons. But did the Confederates have a secret weapon? Could they really have built the world's first long-range missile? The MythBusters and the build team are going to join forces to find out.
So where should we start with this?
Well, I think we can only begin with an examination of exactly what the state of the art of rocketry was, if any, at the time this myth is supposed to have happened, roughly 1865.
So what you're getting at is that we need to get a bunch of plans for these rockets, build them, and see how well they actually worked.
Shoot them off, see what they're capable of.
Okay.
First, before attempting to make the mythical 100-mile missile, the MythBusters are building short-range rockets that were used in the Civil War. When complete, they'll launch them to learn whether the long-range Confederate rocket is even plausible. But so far, this build isn't exactly a walk in the park.
6th. So, a 6th larger, that's...
With plans dating back over a century, this one is proving to be a bit of a brain drain.
2.3...
Until finally, Jamie gets some inspiration.
I'm building a replica of what is known as the Hale rocket, and that type of rocket is generally acknowledged as the state of the art in the Civil War era.
State of the art because over its 2,000-yard range, it had a hint of accuracy, brought about by tail fins that caused it to spiral through the air. Armed with dusty plans from the Smithsonian, Jamie sets his sights high. But in case Hale falls flat, Adam's building another retro rocket. And his, like the myth, is a 2-stager.
The Boxer rocket is actually a rescue rocket. It was made to fire from one boat to another or from the shore to a boat in need of rescue, carrying a line so that that boat could be pulled to safety.
The Boxer rocket's initial thrust came from the first stage. As that burnt out, it fell away, and the second stage fired up and carried the rope over 300 feet to the sinking ship. But for Adam, it's not all plain sailing, because no one seems to have built one for over 100 years.
I have no idea if this is going to work.
While the Boxer makes progress, the Hale is out for the count, because Jamie's made an error of schoolboy proportions. And to avoid public humiliation,
You know, if I don't talk, you don't get any good TV.
he's run away from the cameraman.
What happened?
Nothing.
Denial is a river in Africa.
Come on.
What happened? Did you accidentally weld the thing at the end of your pipe that was supposed to be a screw fitting?
Overzealous welding has sealed his rocket shut, and he's not happy.
We've had about like a couple of hours of playing around with the thing, and that's not interesting, but somehow when we screw up, everybody's all over it.
While a sulking Jamie has to start from scratch, Tori's busy building the Civil War rocket launcher.
It's a pretty simple design. It's just a channel that we're going to load the rockets into, and it's got 2 legs that support it in the front, and it also allows the angle to change. They're adjustable, so we can have different, angles of trajectory.
Time for a test, albeit with a flimsy firework.
I'm not really sure what this one's going to do. It might scream, it might explode, but okay. You know what, the rocket followed the channel perfectly and it sent it in the right angle. I just hope it's sturdy enough for the big rockets.
I know, that's gonna be a lot of thrust.
I got some more rockets, so maybe we should light off a couple more.
Yeah, like a couple at once.
Yeah.
While Pyro Tori gets his kicks, Adam's made a find that changes the Boxer and maybe the mythical rocket too.
Upon doing some more research, it turns out that nobody's ever seen one of these rockets. No one's seen one in a long time. No one's got one. No one builds them. So there has been some confusion as to whether or not it was a true 2-stage rocket or a compound rocket. And it turns out that it's a compound rocket. And indeed, it does not separate in the middle halfway through its ignition.
So the Boxer is not a true 2-stage rocket. The sections don't split, they simply burn through each other. The idea that the mythical Confederate rocket was a 2-stage must now be in doubt. As Adam puts the finishing touches to the Boxer, Jamie's come out of his corner fighting and is already attaching those revolutionary tail fins that spun the Hale rocket for accuracy.
There was a price to pay to make these spin. Even with this clever design, it actually reduced the total range of the rocket.
Range doesn't mean crap if it can't be accurate.
Yeah.
I'll take accuracy over range any day.
And that's the same conclusion as Mr. Hale drew.
I'm fairly happy with this. It's not a polished, shiny thing, but it looks like it means business.
At last, the rockets are ready. They just need the gunpowder fuel.
There we run into kind of a problem. I mean, first of all, it's illegal for you and I to pack black powder ourselves. But secondly, the pressures they packed these rockets under was really just monstrous, and that makes it even more dangerous.
Sounds like we need to get our old buddy Eric Gates.
Yeah, I think we should call Eric, and I think rather than go with black powder, we should ask Eric to supply us with some modern equivalent motors that replicate the amount of thrust and burn time of the Civil War era rockets.
Civil War rockets, but modern fuel. And for the imminent launch, the team head for the hills. The MythBusters have built rockets that date back to the Civil War. They're going to launch them in the desert to help them learn how to build the mythical Confederate rocket, rumored to have a range of 120 miles.
We're here in the Mojave Desert at the Cohen Dry Lake Bed near Edwards Air Force Base, and we're about to test the authentically recreated Civil War era rockets.
Authentically recreated, but because of state laws, contemporarily fueled, thanks to the rocket expertise of their honorary MythBuster, Eric Gates.
When the countdown goes, these rocket motors are going to burn for 4.
Eric has already helped show that an ancient Chinese entrepreneur failed to get into orbit. And can you do a full 360 on a swing? Well, only if you've got someone like Eric there to help. Today, the cool of the van has become Civil War mission control.
I got something to show you guys. This right here is my Boxer rocket.
Adam's as proud as a new father. And like a new baby, the rocket first gets weighed.
All right, so 8.4 pounds for this thing.
And measured.
Diameter of the rocket is 3 inches.
This data is then fed into a computer simulation to see whether the rocket stands a chance of flying.
Okay, I've put a little set of fins on here to simulate the stick, and it looks like it's going to be stable. Let's try a motor.
Let's put a K550 in it to start out.
K550 it is.
The computer's fully primed.
Go.
Flight path, perfect. Range, 20,000 feet.
Remember, these are really rough simulations because your nozzle is not the same as what comes with the motor. So these could be greatly off, but hopefully they're going to be fairly accurate predictions.
Jamie's 20-pound rocket is historically more reliable than Adam's. So what does the accurate computer make of it?
See, right now it's doing about 500 feet and about 50 feet up, 60 feet up.
That's not quite the spinning that the Hale rocket was famed for. As launch looms, the rockets are ready to be fueled up with ammonium perchlorate motors. These modern motors are the most advanced in amateur rocketry and may be a little more powerful than Civil War black powder. But as they wrap them to ensure a snug fit in the rockets, Adam and Jamie are wondering if the main myth has historical authenticity, or is it just another tall tale?
Well, you know, now you can find references to the Civil War rocket all over the web, and they're saying that the rocket was about 12 feet long and it carried a 10-pound gunpowder warhead.
Well, the tale first showed up in 1958 in a Southern newspaper written by a Vienna correspondent signing only as C.R. Johnson.
Well, our researchers were unable to find C.R. Johnson or the article.
The myth may be nothing more than a mirage. But in this desert, it's T-minus 60 seconds for the Hale rocket.
We built this according to official plans and specs of the period, and if it worked then, it ought to work now.
What does our percentage maestro think?
70% chance the thing spins out, ends up about 200 feet away. 29% chance that it actually flies totally successfully and ends up 3,000 feet away. There's a 1% chance that it hits the ground and bounces right over to us.
And with those words of wisdom, it's the bit now with the countdown.
3, 2, 1, go.
She's up and away.
Congratulations, Jake.
Wow, easily done, brother.
I was afraid that it was going to loop, but then it just got the spin. When the spin's what keeps it going straight. That was great.
Those revolutionary Hale tail fins did the trick and kept the rocket on a computer-defying perfect arc.
See it actually go and work, especially kind of having you on the edge of your seat as you're watching it go, and then it just kind of homes in and does its job. It was cool. It's cool design.
One down, one to go.
I got a boxer rocket, and I'm gonna fire it.
Complete with its rescue rope.
You're ready to rock and roll.
Is that it?
That's it.
Is that it?
That is it. Next, you push the button.
Light some rockets! In 3, 2, 1. Whoa!
We have liftoff.
You guys all clear?
That is cool!
It looks like they knew what they were doing back there in the 1800s.
They might have known what they were doing.
Yeah, look good.
Ain't that the truth? Another near-perfect flight. The rescue rope didn't fare so well, but at least the drowning sailors would have had a spectacle to behold. Adam and Jamie's next task is to build the long-range rocket of the myth. So first, they'll need to find out how far their non-mythical missiles flew.
I don't know, but I think that's one of the rockets, and judging by the size of the hole, I think it's mine. I don't know. I'm gonna see if I can feel the end of it. Oh, I'm still not touching anything.
Oh, backhoe time.
Like a miner in the gold rush, Jamie starts digging. And the lighter boxer rocket? Well, 500 yards further on.
That's where it landed. I'm just terrible at judging distance from here, but I'd say it's at least 1.5 miles. I'm gonna pace it out. Calculating each of my steps is about 1 yard, and we'll see where I get to.
As Adam measures his flight path, Jamie has at last struck gold.
There she is. We got the end clearly exposed, and I think we should be able to tug it out with the come along pretty well. So
The heavy hail flew half as far and went over 5 feet into the ground. Soft to crash land in, tiring to measure.
1,317 yards. I'm tired.
The MythBusters have successfully launched rockets that haven't been seen for 80 years. But now, they've got to use what they learned to build the mythical 100-mile range Confederate rocket.
well, now we have a pretty good idea of what the standard kind of rocket that was used in the Civil War era is capable of. And I got to say, we've got our work cut out for us as far as this mythical rocket, because there's just not a whole lot of information about what it was.
Well, you know, we start with what we've got. I mean, they say it was a liquid-fueled rocket, so we should talk to somebody about what kind of technologies that would make a liquid-fueled rocket they had available at the time.
Liquid fuel? Well, that is what NASA uses. Of course, they had their teething problems too. But surely this technology is light years ahead of the Confederates. If only we had a rocket scientist.
Hello. How you doing, guys?
Nice to meet you.
So you're like a rocket scientist, right?
Yeah, exactly. I teach the rocket propulsion class at San Diego State, and I launch my own rockets.
Does being a rocket scientist help you pick up chicks?
Unfortunately, in the rocket science world, there's not that many women, and they're hunted to extinction.
Hunted to extinction. So, have you heard this myth that the Confederate Army actually built a liquid-fueled rocket that they fired from Virginia to Washington, D.C.?
It was the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. People were doing all kinds of crazy things with steam engines and steamboats. I suppose it's possible.
What's not possible is to understand the ensuing discussion. But eventually they thrashed out the characteristics of a plausible Civil War-era two-stage rocket, powered by ethanol and liquid oxygen. And they unearthed some interesting new data.
This myth was supposedly made possible by Lord Kelvin, who was persuaded to make liquid oxygen 12 years before it is generally accepted that this first occurred.
Apparently, German physicist Ernst Mach contributed a small turbine and a gyroscopic stabilizer.
The rocket was launched from a hole in a riverbank that was lined with a tube made from naval cannons.
So here are the likely ingredients. Lord Kelvin's liquid oxygen made the rocket fuel burn. Ernst Mach's gyros gave it stability. A cannon provided the trajectory. And gun cotton made it explode out of the barrel. But what was the fuel? It could have been ethanol, made since ancient times by fermenting sugar. And it is used as a fuel. In today's environmentally conscious age, clean-burning ethanol is widely used as an additive to reduce gasoline emissions. Clean and green was not the aim of the Nazis when they invented their ethanol-fueled V-2 rockets. It was an oil shortage that drove their search for an alcohol-based rocket fuel. Nonetheless, the V-2 suggests that moonshine could have been used in the Confederate rocket. Next, it's Lord Kelvin's Big O. Liquid oxygen is needed as the fuel oxidizer. Without it, the ethanol will burn only gently. But when it's added, the fuel is fully oxidized and virtually explodes, causing a massive amount of thrust. And it's down to Grant to make it.
Well, I'm going to replicate Joseph Priestley's landmark experiment of the late 1700s, where he actually discovered oxygen using mercuric oxide, liquid mercury, a magnifying glass, and the sun.
Before making liquid oxygen, he first has to produce oxygen gas by focusing the heat of the sun onto mercuric oxide.
Now for the sun.
As it heats up, oxygen gas should bubble up into the test tube.
Hey, it's bubbling. Tiny, but still bubbling.
It's working, but he's going to be here a while longer yet. And when he's got enough, like Lord Kelvin, Grant's got to liquefy it. Meanwhile, because the mythical rocket was fired from a naval cannon, Carrie's gone to the fort.
So Jamie and Adam need to know what size the cannons were during the Civil War. So I've come here to Fort Point to do some measuring of cannons and find out.
These measurements are key to the MythBusters missile because there's no written record of the dimensions of the Confederate rocket.
All right, that's 11-foot length.
Adam and Jamie do know that it was fired from a cannon. So if Carrie measures the biggest cannons from the Civil War,
10 inches?
Then the MythBusters can build the biggest rocket possible. And they'll also have a launch tube they can replicate.
9 foot 2 inches.
It's another ingredient ready. Launch tube cannon, check. But the MythBusters have made a worrying discovery about Lord Kelvin.
Well, Adam, as the myth suggests, William Thompson, aka Lord Kelvin, did in fact live during the Civil War era, but he never claimed to have made liquid oxygen.
And we're supposed to believe someone whose name was Thompson but went around saying he was Lord Kelvin? That's Lord Kelvin to you?
Yeah.
But in 1852, he did observe that gas expanding in a vacuum decreased in temperature.
And that discovery, in turn, made it possible in 1877 for two French scientists, Pictet and Calitet, I believe it was, to, in fact, achieve making liquid oxygen.
Yeah, but their success was only making the tiniest little vapor of liquid oxygen for just a few seconds. Industrial quantities were not remotely available until the 1890s and really until the 1900s.
Well, that explains why Grant's been struggling so. Using Civil War technology, he's been trying to put his oxygen gas under so much pressure that it turns into liquid.
That doesn't sound like 80 PSI.
But whatever he tries, just ain't working.
I got a problem with this here cylinder.
And that's because M5, like the Civil War times, is just too warm.
As it turns out, is actually a critical temperature above which you can't liquefy oxygen. It just simply won't happen. That temperature is minus 118.6 degrees Celsius. And unfortunately, in Civil War times, they didn't possess the technology to make anything nearly that cold.
And without the liquid oxygen, the Confederate rocket myth is looking busted. In the American Civil War, did the Confederate Army fire a long-range missile? The MythBusters are trying to find out. But Grant has just failed to make a vital rocket ingredient.
Well, you know, Grant's results make it pretty clear that they just did not have the ability to liquefy oxygen during the Civil War, which for us rules out the possibility of a liquid-fueled rocket that uses liquid fuel and a liquid oxidizer. I don't really know where we go from here.
Well, I do. And, you know, I've been doing some reading on this. I think the design we should use is called a hybrid. The fuel is wax. The oxidizer that we would use would be nitrous oxide. The design doesn't involve any really complicated moving parts or anything.
Number one, all those materials sound really safe to work with. And number two, the technology for all of them was available during the Civil War. That sounds like a perfect solution.
So it's Plan B, a hybrid Confederate rocket. Lord Kelvin's liquid oxygen replaced with liquid nitrous oxide, and the ethanol fuel by solid paraffin wax. It's the last chance for this myth. And it all depends on whether making liquid nitrous oxide using Civil War technology is even possible. So Grant gets another bite at the cherry, but this time, in an extreme case of please don't try this at home, the recipe has been censored.
The plan here is to heat up with that will actually produce a gas. We're going to run those through and at the other end should come out nitrous oxide.
So Grant adds some moo with some meow and starts heating. With the temperature creeping higher, the gas starts to bubble out. And Adam can't resist having a sniff.
That burns!
As Adam recovers, more gas bubbles through. But is it nitrous oxide? Or, to use its common name, laughing gas?
Nitrous oxide is more plausible as an oxidizer. Nitrous oxide is more... Okay. Nitrous oxide is more...
They've clearly made laughing gas. But what is he trying to say?
Nitrous oxide is more plausible as an oxidizer during the Civil War than oxygen because the pressure that you need is a lot less. You're looking at 50 atmospheres for nitrous oxide versus 400 for oxygen.
So nitrous oxide needs less pressure to be liquefied, and better still, it can be done at room temperature. A time-saving, shop-bought bottle later, and the Confederate hybrid rocket can really happen. But with one final alteration. Adam's Boxer rocket, like that of the Myth, was described as a two-stager. But further research proved otherwise.
And it turns out that it's a compound rocket, and indeed, it does not separate in the middle halfway through its ignition.
Given that the launch was so successful, they're going to make their mythical rocket a one-stager as well. The final design is set. The rocket will be the size of the biggest cannon carry found at the fort. At the top, there'll be a tank full of liquid nitrous oxide joined via a release valve to a tank filled with paraffin wax. Upon ignition, the burning gases will burst out through a graphite nozzle. So, first things first, Jamie goes 21st century shopping for some 19th century parts. He's looking for some metal piping that Civil War rocketeers might have found at their local suppliers. They're going to make their best effort and then test it in the shop before trying to make it fly in the desert.
I'm making the nitrous oxide tank for the rocket. We're using common steel plumbing pipe and fittings because that's easy and quick for us, and it's not too dissimilar from what they might have had at the time.
Meanwhile, Adam's cooking up the new fuel, the paraffin wax with carbon added for an even burn. After it solidifies, it should fit perfectly inside the rocket.
No leaking.
As the testing draws nearer, for safety, the team need a rocket-resistant bunker, also known as a shipping container.
Okay, we're in.
Perfect.
Perfect parking, but how bomb-proof is the bunker?
There we go. Woo! Uh-oh.
Not very.
A lot of daylight coming through the roof.
They've bought a holy rust bucket.
Who cut the budget on the bunker? Like, this seems like something you'd spend the extra cash on.
Yeah, when you got lives at stake.
Is that a wasp nest?
Yeah.
Sweet.
To top it off, there's wasps. But not for long.
Oh, shoot, that was cool. Set a bomb off in there, the whole roof might go up. So I gotta redo the roof. I still gotta get the ventilation in. I gotta get the cinder blocks in. I gotta sweep this thing out. I mean, thing's a mess. But hey, we're gonna have a bunker.
As Tori slowly makes it blast-proof, the MythBusters have dug up some more mythical musings.
What factoids do you have for us today, JB?
The myth specifically states that the launch took place near Richmond in March of 1865 and was witnessed by Jefferson Davis, who was the president of the Confederate States of America.
Now, there is an element of truth to this story. Jefferson Davis was, in fact, in Richmond around March of 1865.
Well, the problem is that there is actually a very good record of every day of Jefferson Davis's activity during the month of March, and there is no mention whatever of any kind of a two-stage rocket.
But maybe it was a secret launch.
Well, there's always that.
It's no secret that Torrey's bunker is becoming ever more beefed up. And as launch nears, Adam's rocket fuel is all set.
All right, well, the wax is cured overnight. Let's see what it did. Oh, yeah!
It's worked perfectly.
Yeah, I'm proud.
And will it fit? Of course. But there's no rest for the wicked. Jamie gets on with sealing the rocket, but is slightly alarmed at how simple it all seems to be.
It doesn't make any sense that it should be this easy. This is some laughing gas and some plumbing fixtures. And if it actually goes someplace, that's kind of scary.
The MythBusters are not used to things being so painless. But let's not forget, it's not even past its test yet.
Well, there she is. Tank's sealed. We have the ignition valve in place. We have the combustion chamber.
They're just waiting for the graphite nozzle. Graphite was the only thing available during the Civil War that could handle the crazy heat that the rocket's combustion generates.
Oh, that's a rocket. Oh, I'm totally psyched about that.
She's fully primed. With countdown just around the corner, it's time to take her to the bunker. The MythBusters are preparing to batten down the hatches in preparation for a big boom test. They've built their own Confederate rocket out of Civil War era technologies. And because the desert is a long way to drive to find out the motor doesn't work, they're about to try it in a bunker in their shop. For safety, Adam secures the rocket so it will burn but not launch. And Jamie sets up some ventilation in case it's more of a smoke bomb. With everything ready, they're on to the final checks, starting with the quick release, the valve that will open the nitrous oxide to the fuel.
Okay, go ahead and pull. Cool.
Check. Next test is the ignition.
All right, Jamie, I'm ready when you are.
Okay, and 3, 2, 1.
Smoking smells like, there we go.
Check.
Yeah, that took a second.
It's time to vacate the bunker because the Confederate rocket is going to get fired. They're going to fill the top half of the rocket with liquid nitrous oxide, ignite the wax, and then open the quick release valve.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about.
The nitrous oxide tank should be filling up, but no one is quite sure whether it's working.
I saw something drip.
It's dripping out of the quick release.
Oh, okay.
So that's actually a good sign.
Okay, well, let's kind of stand away from there, guys.
We're getting liquid nitrous oxide. Woo!
But 15 minutes later, and the tank is still filling up.
Yeah, this is where the danger zone happens. When nothing happens for a while, everyone's like, well, let's get closer. Let's get closer. Let's get closer. Boom! And everyone's dead.
Do you want to just go for it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
They're just going to go for it. But for safety reasons, Jamie must first disconnect the nitrous oxide filler tank.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I knew I was going to do that.
Next time you should say that there might be a large kaboosh. Because, like, my heart's beating like 500 times a minute right now.
Those with a weak heart or a nervous disposition should look away now, because it's test time.
Okay, I'm in place, Adam.
Fire in the hole. So 3, 2, fans, go.
We clearly have ignition. But what the hell's going on in there? Not so much fire in the hole as fire in the whole shop. The MythBusters fire team have their work cut out. And what on earth must the neighbors think? There's more smoke than a year's worth of cigars. With the fire under control, the team decide to evacuate in case the gas is toxic.
Hey, that worked! I called 3, 2, fans, go. I pushed the igniter, Jamie pulled the fuel release, and I heard the thing catch. I heard it go, choo, go, boo, woo. I mean, just like exactly the way all the footage we've seen of liquid-fueled rockets going should sound. It put out a diabolical fireball outside the thing. It looks like it melted the ballistic glass. I mean, I can't wait to actually see the kind of damage it did in there.
As the smoke begins to clear, the damage is getting easier to see. Their hybrid rocket has turned M5 into a scene of apocalyptic proportions.
It's a testament to the size of the fireball and the heat that came out, what happened to my hovercraft.
If it did that to the hovercraft, what was going on inside the bunker? Well, the heat was so great that the cameras only filmed a giant fireball. Until, that is, they melted.
You know, I don't mind saying that I'm suffering the sin of pride here just a little bit. I mean, no one can dispute that through our ingenuity, we have achieved a hybrid rocket in 2 days with just a bunch of plumbing parts.
You mean we've achieved a hybrid rocket engine and system. We still have yet to put it in a sleek rocket-like exterior and build the cannon to fire it out of.
Exactly, and there's also the problem of tackling this mythical gyroscopic stabilizing system that the myth states. So I'll tackle the gyroscopic stabilizer. You want to take on the body and the nose cone?
Okay.
After some celebratory ego massaging, the down-to-earth work continues. For the final refinements, Adam's making the stabilizing system that gives the rocket a smooth and accurate flight path. But steam-powered, this ain't.
We looked at a lot of different ways to add gyroscopic stabilization to this thing, and we settled on the design that Hale used when he designed the Hale rocket, which was fins that affected the exhaust of the rocket only, but that exhaust being made to be rotational added a rotational stability to the rocket itself. So we've tried to do the same thing with ours on a much larger scale.
Ernst Mach and his gyro join Lord Kelvin and his liquid oxygen in the busted bin. Meanwhile, Jamie is making a more efficient string-pulled release valve to let the liquid nitrous oxide into the fuel tank. For the test, he was standing right next to the bunker. For the launch, he wants to be a bit further away.
It's important that I not be very close to the rocket when the nitrous oxide is dumped into the combustion chamber when it's lit, because there will be a lot of fire and I could get burned.
With the quick release ready and working, Jamie's routed round the shop and come up with a naval cannon launching tube.
Okay.
It's this pipe that the rocket will be propelled out of, courtesy of the Myth's Civil War gun cotton.
Carrie Elizabeth Byron?
Yes.
Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to make us some gun cotton.
Great. What is it?
Well,
I don't
it's
know.
some kind of cotton.
Yeah.
And it's probably got some nasty chemical added to it.
It's definitely going to shorten your lifespan, but we need a bunch of it. We need to figure out how to make it and get some over to us, okay?
Sounds like fun.
Oh, by the way, it's quite possibly explosive when you're done making it, so be careful. Keep that in mind.
You guys always give me the best jobs.
Gun cotton is what apparently gave the rocket its initial thrust. It's an important but dangerous part of this myth. So the recipe is a MythBusters secret.
Okay, we're adding a ½ ounce of to a ½ ounce of slowly.
When you add donkey to rooster, you get a violent
And,
reaction.
all that wonderful smoke cannot be good.
1
And all that wonderful smoke cannot be good.
2
And all that wonderful smoke cannot be good. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 29 30 31 32 33 34 35 36 37 38 39 40 41 42 43 44 45 46 47 48 49 50 51 52 53 54 55 56 57 58 59 60 61 62 63 64 65 66 67 68 69 70 71 72 73 74 75 76 77 78 79 80 81 82 83 84 85 86 87 88 89 90 91 92 93 94 95 96 97 98 99 100 101 102 103 104 105 106 107 108 109 110 111 112 113 114 115 116 117 118 119 120 121 122 123 124 125 126 127 1
So it's in with the cotton wool.
I don't know how much I trust respirators and masks at this point. That stuff looks just disgustingly fatal.
The rest of the fatal process is classified. But after a complicated afternoon, Carrie's gun cotton is all set for a test.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Woo! Not bad.
That makes a big difference.
The secret recipe works. The gun cotton is remarkably energetic. But could it propel a rocket out of a cannon?
All right, let's try it with the cannon.
Cool.
This is the crucial part. If the gun cotton is powerful, then they can scale this up to give the hybrid rocket its initial thrust.
You ready? Okay. Fire in the hole in 3, 2, 1.
Success. And with more of it, it could just be enough to kickstart the rocket out of its naval cannon launch tube. The fifth and final mythical ingredient is ready. The gun cotton check. That just leaves the last details. First, the nose cone.
I don't have a big enough piece of wood for the nose cone, so I'm going to lay that out of foam. I mean, we're not putting an actual warhead on this thing.
Even the MythBusters have to draw the line somewhere. A foam nose cone will have to do. And second, a paint job. Looking pretty in pink, the MythBusters rocket is finally ready. This puppy is going to get fired.
Oh, it's gotten heavier.
Yeah, I know.
The MythBusters' homemade Confederate rocket is about to shoot for the moon. Time to return to the desert. Where things have started badly.
And we're stuck. But it's only the biggest vehicle in the fleet that's stuck. So we're using every other vehicle to get it out.
Jamie drove them into this mess, so he's got to dig them out.
What else do we have to stick under there? Anything?
But they're not having much luck. And believe me, this is not a fun place to break down.
We were hoping to work for the morning and then go back to the hotel, have a hacienda, work later in the day so we didn't take the heat of the sun. But no! Go ahead and pull. Pull, pull, come on, pull!
At 110 degrees, reinforcements are called. And with some tow truck talent, she's out. Freed at last, Jamie swings the truck around and gets stuck again.
Is there anything I could say that would make this more poignant? I don't think so.
Like rats in a sinking ship, the team abandon their lamentable lorry and take all their rocket equipment with them. After finally arriving on site, the race is on to get the rocket ready and fired. And to start, Adam finishes off the cannon-inspired gun barrel. To get the launch trajectory, Adam's attaching an A-frame to it. Meanwhile, Jamie's back to pulling strings.
I've run the pull cord, which opens the nitrous valve the entire distance because I want to feel what it feels like and have somebody watching on the other end to make sure that it actually worked.
We're ready for the test whenever you are.
Yo!
Hey!
That was it, right on the ball.
Hey, that worked!
With the quick release valve working from 500 feet, the team slide the rocket into the cannon.
Favor the far side.
Add the wax fuel, and then seal her up.
Perfect. Lovely.
Fabulous. You're the man. Stud. What?
And next up for these studs is the erection.
There you go, Eric. Watch your fingers.
She's nearly ready.
You like it? Yeah.
Jamie adds Carrie's gun cotton propellant to the base of the cannon. And that just leaves the fuel oxidizer, the liquid nitrous oxide. As the team make the final preparations, it seems this hybrid rocket has come a long way from the original myth. So is any part of this parable actually true?
They did have gun cotton in 1865, and they did have steel. They did have nitrous oxide.
Firing a rocket from a tube, totally plausible. Completely within the realm of possibility.
Building the rocket is one thing. All of the processes that go into actually launching it make it, in my opinion, improbable, but not impossible for them to have done in that era.
The Civil War rocket. Improbable, but not impossible. Sure, the MythBusters have made a few changes, but does it really stand a chance of flying the mythical 120 miles?
All right, here's the percentages. 60% chance that we get a lot of flame and a lot of fuss and bother, and the rocket doesn't leave the tube. 5% chance that it blows up in the tube from too much pressure or something like that. What have I got left, 35? Yeah, I'll give 20% chance of a successful launch and 15% chance of something I cannot even remotely predict.
Well, let's find out. Adam's going to press the button, then Jamie will yank open the quick release valve.
All right, here goes the big boom Civil War rocket. In 3, 2, 1, ignition. Something's happening. Here it goes. Woo!
I know, me too.
Yeah! I forgot to take a picture. Sir?
Good job, Jimmy.
Good job, everybody.
Wow.
Got out of the barrel, great in the air.
Our first hybrid rocket.
And didn't she do well? It took a while for the nitrous oxide to mix with the fuel, but then she was off.
Nice work. Should we go find our rocket?
Yeah.
All right. Is it that thing right that way?
Yeah, it's right there.
Okay, so I'll pace it off while we walk out.
That was a rocket. There's no two ways about it. For being made out of some plumbing pipe and pipe caps, it's not half bad. That was heavy.
It weighed over 200 pounds. But how far did it go?
I got it! Here it is! There you go.
1, 2, 3.
Made it about 500 yards in 2 days. 2 days, baby. Let anybody else do that and get something airborne like this out of plumbing parts and a visit to your local hardware store.
A little hubris from the Heinemann.
And rightly so. After all, they just built a rocket out of plumbing parts in 48 hours. Want to see it again? The 200-pound Civil War rocket came straight out of the barrel, but had nowhere near the thrust of modern rockets. A success, but still 119 miles shorter than the myth.
So there you have it, Confederate rocket. Is it busted, plausible, or confirmed?
Totally busted. You know, we got airborne with stuff that they could have had, they could have put together, but nowhere near 120 miles.
I agree. They had access to all this technology, but putting it all together didn't happen for another, maybe even 100 years. And we made a good effort, and I'm so glad we got a launch, but this one's busted.
Busted.